Okay, welcome into today's show. Today I'm joined by Kevin Ward. He is the pitmaster and owner of 441 South. It's a barbecue restaurant out of Canton, Georgia. And Mr. Kevin, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Hey, Kurt, thank you for having me.
So for our listeners, I was connected to Kevin by another listener, Tony McGee, and here we are. And I think Kevin may hold the title on the BBQ for Newbies podcast as the first restaurant owner to come on the show. So you've got that distinction going for you. But we chatted a little bit about journey before we started recording. And if you're a veteran listener of the show, you know that I love to talk about barbecue journeys. So that's where we'll start the conversation, Kevin. And so tell us, educate us how you got into barbecue, how this restaurant came about, all that fun stuff.
Sounds good. Well, I've always loved grilling, barbecuing, smoking. Something I've done. I grew up with my granddad doing it, and something I've always done and always had a passion about. And about 2005, 2006, I bought a big green egg and just kind of went from there. And really when Instagram rolled around about 2010, found this group of guys on Instagram that we were all taking pictures of our food, posting it every night. Everybody was cooking on big green eggs or Kamado style, and most of us were. And became friends with a lot of them. I worked in the corporate world for about 25 years total, but back then I had found out that I had a vision impairment in about 2011 that I knew I wouldn't be able to retire from where I was. And I still just worked there as long as I could, cooking at night, on weekends, doing a bunch of egg fest with a lot of friends of mine, which led to a lot of cooking demos, teaching cooking classes at Big Green Egg, things like that. But my wife and I were looking, and we were like, hey, we've got to figure out a plan B, since I knew I wouldn't be able to retire. So enrolled 441 South. We started as a catering business and did food trucks for a couple of years. We hammered that out, me and one other guy. So that's pretty hard hustle when you cook the way we do, which is fresh every day. So we were rolling about 3 or 4 days a week, cooking all night, serving all day, very minimal sleep, and knew that brick and mortar was where we wanted to be. So we've been open in our restaurant for almost 4 years now.
And you guys offer, just from my amateur Google research, you guys offer a wide array of creative barbecue. Let's put it that way. I admire the creativity, on the competition circuit. Creativity is not, it's sometimes can get you in a lot of trouble. And so I always admire, the creative side of things. Where is that? Who's behind that creativity? Is that a joint effort?
It is. So I'm very fortunate. I have a couple of guys that work for me that are very well trained chefs. They love to be creative. They love doing other dishes. They're very passionate about what they do. So we all just kind of get together and every week, hey, what can we do different this week? From curry goat to we do burgers on Thursday nights where we're grinding up our own brisket trimmings so we don't waste anything, to just different things, and they're always bringing something new to the table.
So I love the idea of the team effort because I'm sure from your experience in the corporate world, almost 30 years, 25 years in that world, two minds are better than one, and I'm sure that members of your team, the folks that are there day in and day out, are able to bring different, fresh ideas to the table. And I think that's important, because especially in this post-COVID era, which I'm sure was a rocky road, to say the least, for you and your business. And, I am curious of the name. So I'm guessing 441 South is some sort of a highway.
It is. I grew up in right outside of Athens, in Watkinsville. So my grandparents lived on 441, and also my dad and my grandparents grew up in downtown Watkinsville, so that's where the name came from. Even though I'm not in Watkinsville or on 441, but it's kind of always felt it a little different than just a road sign.
So you've obviously got the brick and mortar, and you opened. You said 4 years ago, correct?
Right.
2 years prior to COVID. So you survived COVID, and it seems like you're flourishing from what I can tell. What's in store? What's in store for 2023 and beyond for you guys?
Well, talk about COVID. As one of the true independent restaurateurs or restaurant owners, a lot of people during COVID, they had investors. So we did it on our own. Like, we have no investors, so it was just me and my family and small team. We were very fortunate and blessed to make it through there, because a lot of people didn't. But what's in store? Pre-COVID, we had these grander plans of expanding multiple locations and things like that. We've kind of backed off of that a little bit. We really, our next step is to own our own building, have our own place that's ours, and build it big enough to where we can have our catering is about 50% of our business. So have a commissary kitchen, have event space for people to host meetings and rehearsal dinners, things like that. That's our plan. I don't know if it'll be 2023 or 2025, but that's where we were working towards before COVID, and that's kind of still where we're at now.
So what are you guys known for? What's your specialty, if there is one?
Well, I guess being in Georgia, not a lot. Georgia is a pork state, so I grew up on chopped pork, which was hams, smoked hams, chopped, vinegar sauce. Georgia's a pork state. A lot of barbecue joints now. Everybody's doing brisket. I think brisket's our number one seller. It's also the least profitable cut of meat out there because of the price. But I think it's kind of what you said earlier. We're creative. We're known for our specials. When we opened our business, one thing we wanted was people to be able to come in and eat every day if they wanted to, bring their family and try something different. It's not just traditional barbecue. We wanted to have options to bring people in multiple times a week, and I think it worked. I think it worked well.
So it sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like it's almost, I don't, this term gets thrown around a lot, so I may be using the wrong term here. That farm to table, is that kind of the gist? Is it, you mentioned fresh. I know you mentioned fresh
Right.
a couple of times.
Well, we use as much local as we can.
Sure.
Our grits come from a farm about an hour from us. When we cook whole hogs, they come from the same farm. We use a local butcher shop to make our sausage, and we get all our specialty cuts from them. But nowadays, everything's through a broadliner. There's only so much produce out there that you can buy and still be profitable. But we try to do as much as we can to support other local businesses. We started using this black garlic in a lot of our recipes, a lot of our rubs, and it's made by a local company. And that it's really cool. It's really cool to see them flourish and grow.
Absolutely. So brisket's the number one seller. And as you pointed out, it's sometimes is not the most profitable, especially since it's so popular these days. Yes, Georgia's a huge pork state. I'm with you. So I'm originally from Missouri myself, St. Louis, Missouri. And, we had pork, we had chicken, we had brisket growing up. One thing I realized though, is that it's hard, even with the barbecue restaurants locally in the Augusta, Georgia area, it's difficult to find good brisket.
Right.
And it just so happens it's my favorite cut of meat to cook. I am very in tune with, and I know Tony is as well with his page, Why Not Georgia Barbecue, very in tune with the sales that Kroger has from time to time. And they do have a lot of sales. So one of the questions I get a lot of from, listeners, whether they be competing or whether they're just, hey, I want to be a better backyard cooker, at my house, is how do you master brisket, right? How do you, what do we do with this thing? right? And so I'm curious, just in your opinion, right, for the brand new person who is going to take the leap, because that's really what it takes, for that brand new person that's going to take that leap into brisket. What kind of pointers do you have for them?
Well, one thing is I've cooked a lot of crappy briskets to get to the point where
Yes.
we are. And one thing I've learned early on is a lot of people will just buy the flat or just buy the point because they're like, I don't want to ruin a large cut of meat like that. Go ahead and buy the full packer. Buy a prime brisket if you can. It's way more forgiving than a choice or than a choice brisket or something like you would get at Kroger. Even though you can take a Kroger brisket and make it really, really good, but if it's your first time, buy something that's going to be a little more forgiving. Moisture is always your friend, so always have a water pan in your smoker. I've rarely seen anybody cook a great brisket without any kind of water pan in their smoker. But yeah, that's the biggest pointers. Keep it simple. Fat side up. I know that's the debate. Everybody's fat side down. You can do it either way. Just some ways are the wrong way. So fat side up is always the way to go. And but yeah, that's the gist of it. We keep it pretty simple. Keep our rub pretty simple. As many as we've cooked and as many as we do every day, everybody's so honed in on the time and temp and things like that. We go off a look. We cook, Fridays and Saturdays we're cooking in excess of 25 to 30 briskets, and it's all a look thing. It's when the bark sets, how they feel. When they're done, it's how they feel. We very rarely ever use a thermometer anymore. It's all about getting them loose, getting them jiggly before you pull them off. And letting them rest is another big thing. A lot of people pull a brisket off right into a cooler at 200 degrees. That's just going to keep that thing trucking along. So you're going to have some mush when you get to it, and it's just going to fall right apart. We always bring them down to about 160 before we put them in a warmer or a cooler or something like that.
So I couldn't agree with you more with the time and the temp. Technology is a great thing. It's improved our lives. I think sometimes it's improved our lives. I think sometimes maybe not. And in the barbecue world is no different. With the age of Wi-Fi and the pellet grills and the technology that comes with it, there is a ton of focus. And if I had $1 for every time I saw that question asked, what's the time and temp for a brisket on one of these social media forums, probably could retire. And to your point, it does come down to the more you cook, the more you understand what it needs to look like, what it needs to feel like, et cetera. But I'm curious, so give us an idea of what your equipment is. Like, what are you guys cooking on there at the restaurant? I'd imagine it's fairly large if you're cooking that much brisket.
Right. So we have a 1,000-gallon direct flow offset smoker. It was originally a Bubba Grills. Lonnie built it for me. It was the first 1,000-gallon he'd ever built. It was originally a verse flow. We ended up buying a primitive a few years ago, Primitive Pits direct flow, and just the way it cooks is so much better. So when it was time we had used that reverse flow so long. When it was time to refurbish it, Randall Bowman over at Deep South Smokers came over, and him and I worked together, and we took our 1,000-gallon, made it a direct flow, added an insulated firebox onto it. So that was during COVID or right after COVID. So we've been using that thing. It's a beast. And then we also have a Southern Pride that we use for ribs, chicken, the smaller cooks. And then we have a hog cooker. We have a BQ. It's a direct coals hog cooker that we use for hogs. We use it for pork steaks, chicken halves, wings. The fuel efficiency on it is very, very low. It uses a lot of wood. You burn the wood down to coals and shovel it. So you're going through mass amounts of wood all the time on that one. But you can't replace the flavor and all that it produces.
That's exactly right. Now, is this hickory wood that you're using?
Yeah, we use all hickory. It's a little bit of oak and hickory mostly, but hickory mostly, and then just a little bit of oak.
Okay. And I would imagine it has to do with the availability of hickory and oak, right? I know
Right.
it's
Indigenous to Georgia. I wanted to keep it pretty much the way everybody, the way the barbecue joints of the past did it. So
right.
you know,
So here's another, you talked about, the great debate about, of course, there's a lot of great debates in barbecue, right? There's the fat cap up, fat cap down debate. There's I call it the great smoker debate, which is the best smoker. And I always like to say, well, it's the one that you know how to use.
that's right.
That's the best one. So let's camp out on though, because another question I get a lot of is, well, reverse flow, traditional offset, obviously, like anything else in life, advantages and disadvantages to both sets. And I don't think one's bad and one's good. I just think it's a difference in how they cook. I'm curious, just from your perspective, because you cook on such large cookers and you cook so much meat, what was it about that traditional flow that appealed to you versus the reverse flow?
The convection on it, it cooks quicker.
Right.
A reverse flow, you're gonna be rolling briskets 19 plus hours, even at 250 degrees. When it's cold outside, you got your radiant heat coming from the plate underneath, but when it's cold, that plate takes a lot longer to heat up. And with a direct flow, you've got convection going on that briskets can cook in half the time and use half the wood, and it's just an efficiency. I'd
Efficiency
rather
thing.
spend 12, 14 hours total than 24 hours total.
Absolutely, especially when you're cooking that much. And that was 25 to 30 every Saturday. Is that what I
Yeah.
heard?
Yeah.
So now are y'all, is that kind of your setup? I know some of the barbecue joints, will have limited hours. Is brisket a Saturday thing for 441? Is that your thing?
No, briskets every day, but we only
Oh,
cook so much. We sell out. I sold out a brisket at 5:30 yesterday. On a Tuesday, which is rare because Tuesdays are in restaurant worlds. Mondays and Tuesdays are usually slower days, but we sold out a brisket yesterday by 5:30. Ribs were out by 6. So we try to gauge it, and it's a roll of the dice every day. Even if we keep records of how much we cook week over week, year over year, and just kind of see where and you can usually tell like July is going to be a slow month because everybody's on vacation. So we try to gauge it based off of past experiences, and we hit it now. We nail it sometimes, we miss it sometimes. Either we
sure.
cook too much and not enough, you know.
So with this is, I'm assuming a lot of folks that need to pitch in here to help cook that amount of meat. It sounds like, how much meat are you cooking just average every day?
Average every day. I would say on our busiest days, we're probably in that 25 30 brisket range. Probably the same with pork butts. So ribs, you're in that 30 to 40 rack range. Chicken. So we do chicken a little different. We run bone-in chicken as a special, but most of our chicken is boneless, skinless thighs. We smoke it in a pan, and it's probably some of the best chicken you'll ever have. It falls apart. You can, because it's cooking in its own juice, you can really overcook it a little bit, just like you
Right.
do chicken wings to get that crispiness, the tenderness of it. But on thighs, we can overcook it a little bit to where it just falls apart. So chicken, we're in that 150 pound range. We normally have turkey, but we're on a national turkey shortage right now. So
Right.
I don't foresee turkey being back on the menu for the next 6 months.
Oh, wow. So it's that big of I didn't realize it was that big of a shortage.
Yeah, it is, and everybody's short selling it right now so they can stockpile for Thanksgiving. But even then, I think it's going to be small turkeys and very high prices.
Of course, naturally, as the supply chain is disrupted and all that fun stuff, just kind of domino effects down the line. So, all right.
Oh
So we
yeah,
chatted about the cookers. We chatted about the amount of meat you guys are cooking. We camped out a little bit on brisket. My next question has to do with what's your if you're cooking, and I think I might know the answer to this, but if you're cooking on a uh, let's say Saturday at the house, are you even doing barbecue at the
yeah,
house, or are you just are you just
yeah.
tired of it at that
The
point?
funny thing is absolutely. I mean, I'm grilling something. I may smoke something. So Saturdays at the house, yeah, we're still cooking some form of barbecue. It's not going to be a traditional pork butt or ribs or something like that. But even if it is, it's going to be different. We're going to do carnitas, or we're going to do some kind of sticky ribs or something like that. Something that's not a traditional what we cook in the restaurant every day.
That's right. So I see that you guys offer classes as well. Let's camp out on that. So educate us on the classes and how, how that's helping folks become better, better at home pitmasters.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of people come in the restaurant. They're like, "Wow, I would love to learn how to cook brisket like that." And being from that kind of world where I did teach some classes, I was like, "Well, let's just start doing it. Let's do it." So the first two I did were overnight classes. We started on the Saturday night, finished up on Sunday afternoon. I did a boot camp class where we did briskets, ribs, pork butts, chicken, wings. We did it all, and it's funny because everybody's like, "Oh, I wanted to give them the full experience." Like I could have cooked, I could have did the magic of TV and had them already cooked and just explained it. But no, I had guys up there trimming briskets, trimming pork butts, seasoning ribs, building rubs, things like that. And it was a lot of fun. It's funny because they were all like, "Oh, we can hang with you all night." I guess after years of cooking barbecue like we do, Chad and my son Sam that work there with me, like I guess we're just different than everybody else because by about 1 a.m. you look around, it was me, Chad, and Sam there left cooking. Everybody else was either in their truck asleep or went home and come back the next morning. But yeah, it was a lot of fun because we do it on offset smokers. I have a pellet grill and Kamado, so we cover the gamut in our classes. We want everybody to feel confident and comfortable when they leave that they can repeat the same process at home. And so we're doing that. We did a whole hog class. I actually cooked a hog on a Myron Mixon pellet smoker in our class. So that was pretty cute. It was a little hog. It was 30 pounds, but it fit.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was thinking to myself when you said that, I didn't realize they made the pellet grills that large, but now I understand.
Yeah, they make them look. You could probably get the larger one and put maybe a 60 or 70 pound hog on it, but I got a little 30-pound hog and cooked it as well. So just to show them it could be.
So whole hog, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to camp out on that because I remember you talking about that earlier. Whole hog is considered by many as kind of the pinnacle of barbecue. If you know how to cook a whole hog, then you pretty much have quote unquote made it when it comes to barbecue. Maybe made it's a bit strong, but you're doing something right. What about whole hog makes it so difficult?
Everybody can't. It says that it's because your shoulders are cooking at a different temp in a different process than your hams or your loins. Just know at the end of the day, it's all gonna. Your loins and ribs are gonna be overcooked. You can protect them. The way we cook them is more Eastern North Carolina style. We cook over direct coals. We're flipping the hog. We finish it on its back and crisp the skin. Plus, we're pulling all of that and chopping it together. So, but what makes it amazing is one, we get hogs that are heritage breed. They're range fed. The flavor on them, we don't even season it. The flavor on it is unbelievable. But getting just the parts of it, you get part of the shoulder, you get part of the ham, you're getting belly in there, you're getting rib meat in there, and it's all chopped together with the skin. Like there's nothing like it. And I really think it's probably one of the easiest things to do. I think people try to overcomplicate it. Right. Again, back to the time and temp. Everybody thinks your smoker needs to be set 250, and if it deviates 5 degrees, it's ruined. I tell them keep it under 300. Get a 50-degree mark. If it's between 250 and 300, I'm going to bed. It'll hang.
It's good.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, we talked about technology earlier. I think that's one of the downsides or the byproducts of, this growth in Wi-Fi and automation that you start to rely on these instruments, and most times you're okay. But, to your point, if they fail or you might overthink it, like you already said, you might just flat out overthink it and get intimidated by it. And I've found, and maybe you found this too, but I've found that sometimes you just got to jump in and do it. And, I'm not saying that you need to go buy a 300-pound hog for the first time, saying that you might want to start with a 30-pound, a 30-pound hog, but what are your thoughts on that? Was it just for you? Was it just about, hey, you know what? Let's just jump in and do this and make it happen. Was that kind of the mentality?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. I've learned a lot from making big mistakes, but yeah, it's also rewarding. Like, I was listening to a podcast the other day. They were talking about new guys coming into the restaurant world and the competition world. When I started cooking and running a food truck, 6+ years ago, there wasn't a lot of things on YouTube about how to trim briskets or how to trim briskets the right way, how to cook them. There wasn't a lot of, there's some, but there's not a lot. Nowadays, you can find anything you want. There's so many avenues out there that people that run restaurants are sharing everything they can about how they cook things, the process. So you've got a lot of younger people that have never been in the barbecue world jump in feet first after watching a couple of YouTube videos, and they're leaps and bounds ahead of where I was to begin with, and they probably ruined a lot less briskets and pork than I have. So, but yeah, I think that's a huge thing.
That's a great point. And, it's for those that want to start a restaurant, it's a lot different than, than starting a competition team. There's just, it's a much different mentality. And I often tell folks that, competition barbecue is not real barbecue, in my opinion. I don't, if I'm cooking barbecue at the house, it's nothing like I do in competition. And I think competition barbecue is really rich. It has to be, they're only going to take one bite, and, to try to make a meal out of that, I think would be a bit of a stretch. But for those that are thinking, I really want to go the food truck route, or I really want to branch out and get a brick and mortar, what are some of those valuable, we'll call them lessons? What are some of those valuable lessons that you learn the hard way that maybe they can avoid?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything has a cost. So there's nothing free out there. So back then people don't understand that. They don't understand that there's cost involved with barbecue sauce. If you're making it yourself, even if you're buying it, everything has a cost, and you need to make sure you're factoring every bit of your cost into it. A lot of places open up and they go out of business quick because they don't factor in a lot of that cost that they haven't anticipated. And also they jump in head over heels in debt and to open a restaurant. I've seen very few restaurants that weren't, $500,000 to $2-3 million in debt to open up. And back to the pandemic, one thing my wife and I did was we opened our restaurant debt free. We were fortunate I had a full-time job and did it slowly and bought things as I went, and everything I made off of 441 South in the beginning, we just dumped back into it. So sure. If I would have been swimming in debt when the pandemic hit, I know for a fact I wouldn't be here.
Right. And that you nailed it. I was hoping you'd chat about being debt free when you do that and making those small purchases, because I've seen that same thing, not just with restaurants, but with a lot of different businesses. There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of emotion, and they're itching to get things off the ground. And sometimes that works, and then sometimes you have a global pandemic, and you can't predict that kind of stuff, and the repercussions from that. So I'm glad you touched on that. And as we wind down the show, I want to make sure our listeners can at least connect with you, connect with 441 South, see all the great work you guys are doing. Where can they find you on social media?
So on Instagram, it's at 441 South, and Facebook, it's 441 South Barbecue Company. We're on TikTok. It's at 441 South. My daughter handles most of that for me. I let her gratefully let her handle that because I'm not that guy. And but she handles most of that for us, or we have a professional guy come in and shoot video for us and stuff. But yeah, that's where we're at. And our website's 441south.com. It's spelled out. It's FOUR, the number 41 South.
Well, we will make sure to have all that included in the show notes so that our listeners can connect with you guys and see all the great stuff you're doing, see the creativity, the classes. I'd love to take a whole hog class. That is one area that I'm inexperienced in, but one that I want to, attempt to, I'm not going to say master, but attempt to learn more about. So, and again, our listeners, take some time, connect with Kevin, connect with 441 South, and just see all the cool stuff they're doing. And Kevin, thank you again for the time, sir. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Kurt. It was a lot of fun.